So thank you very much for the introduction. My name, again, just to be clear, is Frances Mensah Williams, not William Francis. So I am an author. I am an executive coach, and I'm also a human resources consultant. So I was introduced by Toniola, I live in the UK in London specifically. I'm an immigrant to London, and I came here as a young person. So I hope that my perspective will also help with the session that I'm about to start and to share with you. Thank you very much for inviting me to join you today. I am very grateful for the opportunity, and I would like to thank Madame Felucio for all her incredible work to support young people. And it's a great privilege and a great pleasure for me to join CS today and to network with you, youth leaders, pastors, and community champions who are all working to develop our young people and to be able to speak to you on this topic. As I mentioned, I immigrated from Ghana into the UK as a young person. My parents brought us here, and my family and I came, and I came through, did secondary school and university, and then went to work. So my work was predominantly focused around human resources management. And I also then returned to Ghana for a few years to work there as an HR director before returning to the UK. I set up my own consultancy here in the UK on my return. And my work has been predominantly working with professionals, also working to support skills development within Africa. So with my organization, we have undertaken many projects across many African countries. And this has been to really ensure that we're able to grow the skills that our continent needs. In the UK, I also work with young people. I mentor, I train, and the presentation I want to share with you today is to share some of the things and some of the ways in which I work with young people and to look at this issue of leadership, which forms the theme for today's conference. So I hope that gives some context. As I was advised that this is a forum that is bringing together people that are working with young people, so leaders, community champions, and pastors. And it's a way to explore how we work more effectively to support our youth. I'm presenting this session more as a toolkit for you as youth leaders, pastors, and community champions, as you work to support our young people from African and Black heritage in Canada. So my advice really is based on the work that I do in helping young people prepare for leadership. And I think I just wanted to touch on a few of the key skills that I have found have been critical in doing this work. When we talk about leadership, it's a huge topic. Much has been written about it. Many people have written books, articles, and so on, myself included, on leadership. And I want to just talk a little bit about the context of leadership when it comes to young people. But I think a key skill for us as we work and as we engage with young people is our communication skills. And by that, I mean the ability to listen actively to what we're hearing, to be able to engage in conversation with young people and hear what they have to say, and seeing communication very much as a two-way street. Because we cannot influence people if they're not listening. And we cannot make our point if we're not speaking a language that people understand. So as those of us who are responsible for helping young people, for guiding young people, we have to be very conscious that we are listening and that we are communicating in the way that we are teaching them to do. And the third skill that I want to highlight as the toolkit for us working with young people is to bring a coaching mentality to that. And what do I mean by that? I mean, when you coach someone, you're not telling them what to do. You're asking them very powerful questions. You're asking them open questions. You are suspending your own judgment as you make space to hear what someone else has to say. So it's not about weighing in with, you must do this, you have to do that. It's about allowing them to think about questions you are putting to them. Why do you think this will be successful for you? What do you think will happen if you take that particular approach instead of another approach? What is stopping you from feeling that you can achieve your potential? If we can focus on asking open and powerful questions, if we can focus on suspending our own judgments and bringing our own opinions into it until we have built a relationship, we will allow people to identify their own solutions. And when people identify their own solutions, they are much more likely to own those solutions and to implement those solutions than if you try to tell them what to do. So I want to share this as skills that we, as leaders of young people, as advisors of young people, as coaches, as mentors, as pastors, we should also keep at the forefront of our own thinking. So let's talk about leadership. It's a big word. And when we talk about leadership and we talk about the attributes of leadership, you know, if you just say it out of the blue, we're more than likely to think about leaders who are on the political or the national stage or the international stage. We're more likely to be thinking about adults who wield influence over other people through democratic processes or by seizing power, as we see only recently in Niger. We might be thinking, when we talk about leaders, about financial titans, about billionaire entrepreneurs, about business leaders who inspire people and who motivate action. But when we use the word leadership in this context, it's creating images that maybe make sense to us as mature adults, but for young people can seem remote, unreachable, and fundamentally unrelatable. So when we talk about leadership, we have to find a context of leadership that makes sense for where our young people are. Because let's face it, leaders come in all forms. After all, Hitler and Putin are both leaders, just as Mandela and Moses were leaders. So what is it that distinguishes one type of leader from another? And the truth is, there are many effective leaders. We may not like what they're doing, but they are effective as leaders. Some people lead people, other people, to actions that are ultimately destructive to society. They are leaders and they have been effective. But others also lead people to behave in ways that benefit and add value to our communities, to our countries, and ultimately to our world. And they are also leaders. So it becomes important for us to demonstrate and to show and to illustrate what is leadership in the context of a positive force, and how is this going to be something our young people will find relatable to them. And Madame Felucia was talking about this just now in her opening address. The world we live in today is very different, even from 10 years ago, from 20 years ago, never mind from my youth and from the youth of some of us here today. Today, the different tools, the tools of social media, has meant that what was previously untouchable is now touchable. People we didn't used to see up close, we now see intimately through social media. People we would only watch on TV are now speaking to us directly through the different social media platforms. And they're showing us that people are human. People that we thought were superstars are human. But what does this mean? How do we then respect and relate to people when we thought they were a certain type And then we see them in their own world, in the reality of their own world. How do we relate to them as leaders in that situation? Let's just have a quick view of the landscape of our current situation, of this world that we live in today. Because we have many, many challenges in this world of today. We are seeing mental health challenges multiplying daily, even before a world pandemic that led to so much trauma. Mental health was a problem. Since the pandemic, the traumas induced by mental health, from lockdowns, from illnesses, from the loss of life, has led to increased trauma for our young people. We've had economic dislocation, which has led to increased poverty and a lack of opportunity. We have inequality, which is leading to envy and to temptation to cut corners, to get rich quick. We have misinformation in the news, even on regular news channels, we have misinformation. On online channels where there's even less control, we have misinformation. We heard earlier on about the lack of role models. We see family support failing as parents are pushed into working longer hours and spending less time with their children, spending less time talking to their young people, understanding them, guiding them. We see young people increasingly being attracted to join gangs where they feel they will find people who will welcome them and they will belong, because they feel like they don't belong. They feel alienated in this society that we are creating and have created. And when our young people feel the need to belong, they are tempted to belong to the wrong kinds of people. We see racial discrimination. Those of us who are living in countries where, as Black people, we are the minority, we see racial discrimination and racial disparity in the life chances that are open. And as a result, we see disparity in the success that our people can attain. So how do we reclaim this concept of leadership? How do we make it relevant to our young people when we look at this very bleak landscape that I've just painted for you? And the first thing I would say is we must meet our young people where they are, because they live in this different world that is different to the one many of us grew up in. They are living in a different country that many of us grew up in. They are among and surrounded by different cultures from those many of us grew up in. And sometimes the cultures that they are surrounded by are directly opposed to the cultures of their heritage. We need to understand that. So we have to meet them where they are. We have to enter their world. We cannot expect them to know our world or feel comfortable in our world. We have to meet them where they are. So that's the context I want to set some of the approaches, some of the advice in this toolkit that I offer with my talk today. So let's break down leadership. If we're going to talk about the traits of leadership for our young people, we have to really be aware of positioning leadership in a way that makes sense for them. And that means we need them to be aware that they have a choice as to how they show up in their lives and in the lives of the community that they are part of. Because leadership is not just the leaders of nations. It's not just the leaders of companies. It's not just those billionaire entrepreneurs. Leadership can be cultivated by anyone at any level to inspire, to motivate, and to drive positive change. And so every single one of us can be a leader because it is a mindset. It is an idea It is a commitment that we take upon ourselves, that we can inspire, we can motivate, and we can drive positive change. So with that, let's look at some of the traits of leadership that we can encourage our young people to talk about. Now, I have no doubt that over the course of today and tomorrow, we are going to be saying, many of us are going to be saying the same thing. We're saying it in different ways. We may be using different words, different stories, different examples, but ultimately we're saying the same thing. And as I listened to our first speaker, I was struck that many of the things he said are some of the things I will also say. And I don't think we can say these things too often. So let's talk about influencing ourselves and others, because this is a key trait of leadership. How do we influence other people? I would start by saying that we cannot influence other people unless we can influence ourselves. Because the very first stage of leadership is self-mastery, is understanding how do we actually master our own emotions, our own behavior? How do we exhibit self-control and discipline? Because we have the choice in terms of the actions that we take. We have the choice in terms of the friends we make. We have the choice in terms of how we choose to live our lives. Let's not pretend we don't know right from wrong. We do. But we have a choice as to whether we want to live it that way or not. And so as we talk to our young people about leadership, let's ask them to consider how they are influencing other people around them. Are they a natural leader in their groups? Are they the person that everyone around them listens to? And if so, do they recognize the responsibility to therefore influence themselves, to do the right thing? Because we've seen that who still influence others to also not do the right. Can we use our skills as coaches, as mentors, as leaders, as champions, to help our young people ask themselves if they are influencing themselves and others positively? Let's talk about positive attitudes, because part of leading is to have this positive approach and vision that will influence people, that will galvanize people to feel that same sense of positivity that you have. And life is what it is. We heard earlier, failure is going to happen. Not everything goes according to plan. We all know that saying, you know, what happens when God hears us making plans? He laughs. Because we all think we can make plans for our lives and we all think we can put things into place, but we don't always get what we want. But the test is not in falling down when it comes to having a positive attitude, because things will go wrong. The test is in how do you get up? How quickly do you choose to get up? What language are you using to show a positive attitude? What are you doing with your body language as well as your words to show a positive attitude? One that will bring benefit to other people as opposed to a negative attitude. Do you come with solutions or do you come with problems? And if you can bring a positive mindset and a positive attitude, you will find you are a natural leader because people gravitate towards positivity. Leadership is about vision, it's about inspiration. And that means really having a goal or an idea or values that is bigger than you. It's about more than yourself. And as we talk to our young people, let's encourage them to think about what is bigger than themselves. When you are rooted in faith, in Christianity, you know the Almighty is bigger than anybody, and that will help to have perspective. But how do you talk to people who don't feel that? How do you help them create a vision for their own lives, a plan where they would like their careers to go, think about what progress is going to look like for them. How do you get them to understand that in order to succeed, you have to build a network? You have to engage with other people. You have to make the right contacts, and you have to be seen. And this is where I hope we can help them to craft a vision for themselves, to develop inspiration that will help give them the impetus and the motivation to go forward. Another key trait of leadership is collaboration. You know, leaders promote collaboration and inclusion because leaders recognize that they don't do things themselves, they do things through other people. And so if you are not collaborating with other people, you cannot succeed. And this is what I think we also need to share with our young people, is the importance of working together, of collaboration. When we talk about diversity in North America, we're often talking about bringing people of color into the workplace, into positions of influence. But diversity also just means different perspectives. Men bring a different perspective to women. One kind of woman will bring a different perspective to a different type of woman. A child will bring a different perspective to an adult. The point is that all those different perspectives help to strengthen our understanding, because we have the ability then to develop empathy and to strengthen our understanding of how other people think, and therefore what will be successful with other people. So when people come with critique, we need to make sure our young people understand that critique is not a negative. It's to help you find any flaws so you can be stronger. And if you have a hunger for improvement, it will drive you towards greater success. So please, as we talk to our young people, let's bring the importance of collaboration forward. I've talked about communication when I talked about us really being aware of our own communication skills. But this is something we also need to help our young people to understand, to think about what that really means. What does communication mean? It's not just talking at people. It's getting a message across in the right way to the audience in front of you in a way that makes sense to them and engages them in what you are saying. So the type of language you're using, is it appropriate? The type of medium you're using, is it going to work? And the other side of communicating is listening. And listening is a very hard skill for many, many people to master. As a coach, it's a skill I've had to learn myself and continue to learn. Because when you listen, it means you suspend all judgment. Instead of preparing what you're going to say to respond to someone, you are listening. You are creating a space to hear what is being said, and then taking time to reflect before you respond. But if you're not actively listening and you're busy preparing your argument against what you're hearing, you're not listening. So let's think about how we use that as a tool to help our young people really understand that listening is just as important. And I want to talk a bit about resilience, because as we heard earlier, failure is a given. We're all going to fail. We've all failed, and we'll all continue failing. That's not even an issue. That's just going to happen. That's just the fact of living in life. But resilience is about, how do we come back from failure? How do we say, yes, I failed, but you know what? That's not the end. And that's something that I hope, again, as we work with our young people, we can bring to bear and help them understand the importance of that. Because with resilience, what we're saying is discipline your disappointment. Find a way to victory from your disappointment. It may be collaborating better next time, getting other people's help next time, asking, reaching out. But discipline your disappointment, because if you understand why it didn't work, it will help you to try better the next time. Preparation versus perspiration, right? We hear a lot about preparing. Yes, you can prepare, but you also have to do the work. You have to do the sweaty part. You have to perspire. So consistency in how you behave, how you respond to things that go wrong is going to be what matters. How we get our young people to understand that setbacks and disappointment are a means to resilience means that we will really have helped them to master a very key element of leadership. Integrity and values is integral to being a good leader. You can be a bad leader and still be effective, but if we're focusing, which we are, on good leadership, then having integrity, having values, whatever your faith is, it's rooted in values. Truth, honesty, transparency, fairness, inclusion. These are all values that we should aspire to if we are people of faith. And it's values we should help our young people understand, strengthen them, and are important so that the core of who they are is positive. And as leaders, they bring that positivity forward. And it's also about taking responsibility, participating in your own rescue. Training and constant learning is going to be what helps our young people get ahead. And we've got to help them to educate themselves and to become masterful in an area. And that means helping them to really think about taking control of where they want to go with this plan they have for their future. Thinking about how to make education work for them. There is so much that's available now, online, free content. So instead of thinking about following the crowd, let's help them change that psychology and move away from what is everyone else doing and start to be accountable for what they are doing for their own success. And what are the skills that are going to be valuable to them in the workplace? This is what we have to get them to understand, to research and develop themselves, to learn how to speak, to learn how to persuade, to learn how to influence, and to take people with them. That is leadership. And this is a change of mindset that our young people need to know, not just for now, but for life. So as we think about how we influence our young people, let me just touch on some of the things that we've spoken about, because these are the things that I think we can help to bring leadership into context for young people. And, the core lesson that they really need to learn to succeed is going to be making sure that they think about these different elements. We heard earlier from our keynote speaker about dressing the part, looking the part. And first impressions, we all know, first impressions are what count the most. It takes a long time to unwind first impressions. So dress for the job you want, not the job you have. What I always tell aspiring professionals, look the part you want to be so that people see you in that part and you start to see yourself in that part. So punctuality. Now, I'm sorry, but as Africans, we have a terrible reputation when it comes to punctuality. And it's something we need to address, and it's something we need to be better at. Because it is how we avoid some of the stereotypes that we get landed with. So we have to make sure that we give our young people examples of punctuality and that we instill in them the importance of showing how important other people's time is. And that means they have to plan, they have to prioritize, and they have to learn what is important rather than what is easy to do. Promise and deliver. This is something I think, again, we can really use stories and examples to share with our young people about what happens when you promise something and you fail to deliver. What is someone's impression going to be about you when that happens? Do you want that impression to be created, and how is that impression going to help you going forward? So it's about being realistic about what you can deliver so that you can over deliver. So you under promise so that you can over deliver and you can delight people instead of disappointing people. I think we should also encourage them to know that you can ask. There is no problem with asking. Asking shows maturity. It shows you are saying, I don't know, please tell me. When you are in doubt, don't just go ahead and do something and get it wrong. Ask so you can get it right. And this is something we can really encourage and to do. I talked about language when I talked about communication. And this is something which, again, we can encourage them to really think about the way they use language, to avoid offensive language, and to make sure that they are really communicating respectfully and effectively. Collaboration and being a team leader, very much similar things. Be there for other people, just as you expect them to be there for you. A team is as strong as the people that are in it. If it's a true team, it's not dominated by one person. It's a group effort. And when people understand how to play in a team, how to contribute, and realize that they have a responsibility to contribute as well as to receive, this will help them become a natural leader. We've heard about mentors and role models, and I think I would just emphasize that we want to encourage our young people to seek out mentors who will help to champion them, whether this is at work, in education, and they will give them insights into how to progress. So within an organization, I would always encourage people to seek a mentor, someone who understands how the organization works, who's been through the ups and downs, and who can share with you the value that they have gained so that they can help to make it easier for you. Sometimes a mentor comes from a very different background and they can offer you a different viewpoint than you would probably get if you were just to connect with people just like you. So a mentor from a different background can be very valuable. But a mentor that also shares some of the things that you are having to deal with will also be valuable. So you don't need to have just one mentor. And I think we can really ask our young people to think strategically about what do they need to learn and who are the kind of people that can teach them. Find out from these people, what are the lessons that made them successful? And then we can learn from those lessons and we can use those lessons to also teach ourselves. Because as one of my clients said to me, in the end, it's all about people. It's all about people. And one of the most important leadership skills we can teach our young people is networking. Because ultimately, people are the ones that help us get to where we need to go and that we can help to get to where they need to go. So I would ask you to encourage our young people to reach out and build networks and to nurture those networks by giving of themselves and their time as well. It's not just about taking, it's about giving. So whether your network is made up of family members or your teachers or your professors or your bosses at work, these are all connections you need to nurture. And talking to people and telling them what you want to do and what you're trying to achieve will be so critical in their success. When I think about starting my own business, not knowing half the things I needed to know, I reached out to people and I asked them, how do I do this? What is the best way to do this? I'm coming across this particular problem. What advice would you give? You set up your business. Did you experience this as well? And if I had not reached out to people and told them what I was trying to do with my business, no one would have known how to help me. So today we have so many online platforms. For professionals, we have LinkedIn, we have WhatsApp, we have so many ways to reach people all around the world, tools that were not there when I was growing up and starting my own business. So let's encourage our young people to use these social tools wisely in a way that will really benefit them and not to be afraid to ask for help, because anyone who succeeded never did it on their own. They did it with the help of other people. And taking responsibility, it's all about being accountable for your mistakes when they happen, acknowledging them and acknowledging what you have learned from them. There's no point making the same mistakes over and over if you're not learning anything. And I want to talk about failure because we're all afraid to fail. But actually, failure is the only way to learn. Sometimes you win, sometimes you fail. So failure is the other side of learning. It's the speed bump that we encounter on our road to success. If you don't fail, you're never going to learn. And this is what we really want to get across to our young people. Fail. Next time you'll fail even better than you failed this last time. Just keep going. How long does it take a child to learn to walk? They don't just get up one day from the pram and they're walking. They start walking, they fall down. They get up again and they keep doing this until one day they stop falling down. They just keep going. So it's really important that we think about really getting our young people to understand that when things go wrong, don't try and shift the blame. You will gain more admiration if you admit your error or misjudgment and use it as a learning experience for the future. And talking of the future, plan your future. Let's encourage them to keep planning for progress, to identify their skills, to build a network, and to really understand that they can control so much more than they think how their lives will go. We heard earlier that we need to have a can-do-it attitude. And leadership 3.0, today's leadership, not yesterday's, not the leadership of 30 years ago, but today's leadership, what it means for our young people today. Leadership is not a title. It's simply a way of being, right? It's actually simply about being a type of person who can influence others, influence ourselves, and who can master ourselves, discipline ourselves, behave with integrity, behave with values, take charge of our hopes and our aspirations, and be accountable for our own success. So I would encourage you to make sure that our young people seek out everyday heroes for themselves, role models, mentors, people that are different, that they persist. We live in an age of instant gratification and immediate success. We have this myth that goes around of overnight success and I can become a millionaire just by doing this. But we need to really get across that it's about perseverance, it's about resilience, and it's about respect. This is what gets you long-term success, not just overnight success, long-term success. And respect is a big issue for our young. And as leaders, they must learn that respect is not given, it's earned. So what are they doing to give respect and show respect and earn respect? And that means working with other people, valuing other people, and they will value you in turn. So I want to just really reiterate what I said. Let's talk to them about this. Let's get them to dream big. If you don't hit the sun, at least you'll hit the clouds, but aim high. And really be sure that when we talk to them, it's with the understanding that life is going to have pitfalls. You get up, you fail better, because that's the only way you're going to get to success. And before I close, I just want to highlight, I mentioned at the beginning that I'm an author, and I wrote 2 books, which may be of interest to you. One is called I Want to Work in Africa, and this is a careers book for people who want to move their careers to Africa. The second book is called Everyday Heroes, and I know Madame Felicia has copies of that. And this is a book where I interviewed 16 different Black professionals, 8 men, 8 women, and I asked them for their lessons in leadership. So they each answer 7 questions with short responses. Questions like, what was your first job? What do you do now? What lessons did you learn along the way? So these are books that are really helpful. And with Everyday Heroes, behind the interviews, after the interviews, there are some questionnaires and tools that as mentors, as coaches, as pastors, as guiders of young people, you will find these very helpful exercises to think about, help them think about their skills and their career direction. And finally, just to give you an idea of some of the fiction that I write, these are my novels. Some of them are set in Africa or include areas, parts of the story are set in Ghana. So with that, I want to say thank you for your time, attention, and for listening to me today. And I very much appreciate the opportunity to speak today.
Thank you. Now, I'd like to especially thank you for that amazing presentation. Today, we have a remarkable leadership expert in our midst whose life story demonstrates resilience. You can see that what she's talking about is who she is, and I encourage us to go out to those books and novels that she told us about. And we're not just stopping there. We'd like to especially appreciate once again our leadership expert who is just spoken, Madam Frances Mensah Williams. To do this, I'd like to call on the convener, Mrs. Folucia Atilola. Please, ma'am.
Thank you, the able MC. I like saying this after each speaker because I know those are the full time they who want to stay with us to the end of the program. I know in particular, Madam Frances is a very bishop person. She's an expensive personality to have seated for hours. It's just because of the honor that she has for all of you, not just me or the organization. She has passion for you. She's tuned into your world. Any attempt to call her for anything, she's ever ready. I think, like I always tell her, she's mentoring us. We're just how good in Canada now. I guess we started in 2020, 2023. Like we are 2.5 years in Canada. So you can be sure we have a lot to learn from you. We are your baby. You're mentoring us. And you have a silent ways of always like, reordering us when we are trying to help unconsciously. And I know one of the things I've gained is your time consciousness. And today, one way or the other, we're with our audience. We're trying to be here to time because I don't want something like you without telling you openly say, I'm going to be there on time. And with the then 5 minutes to, have an correct way to say, you need to be watching, you need to start the time. So I really appreciate you, and I really want to say thank you so much for this time. And it's an opportunity for all of us to ask our questions. Please, as much as possible, if you can reduce our movement around, I know what we need to. Please. She's here to spend a few more minutes with us. She wants you to ask some questions, and she's willing to answer. It's a golden opportunity. I don't want us to miss that before we introduce the next speaker. Mrs. Williams, please, on with the indulgence of probably just giving us a few minutes to ask our questions if there are questions. But I want to say thank you so much. Thank you so much. I don't have enough words to qualify or quantify your precious time that you have given to us. We are so much honored and you are done. And thank God we have somebody like you. Thank you so much. So question time, please. If you have questions, I'm happy this for to me. Okay, so people have questions. You can show students. Are you there? So
Yeah.
I'm not really help me. Thank you.
Okay.
So because we have only one microphone, I will just say, please, can you step forward? Please. So if you have questions, please can you step forward? And Madam will do justice to all our questions today.
Thank you very much, Pat. I have two questions actually. You talked about communicating. Uh, if you want to communicate a certain thing to your team, maybe a vision, an idea, and they are not getting probably the language that you're putting, or you're using to communicate to them. And what are the best ways in your practice? What are the best ways to switch? What are the I'm leaving an out of your request. What are the best ways you can switch the method at which you were doing before to another? And what would you learn? What would you learn from the audience? What would you learn from the audience and in the best way to communicate it to them? That's the first question. I don't know if I was clear with that. Okay. I don't think I was clear with that. The second question is, you spoke about listening. Um, when you're listening to someone, you said you shouldn't have a response. Uh, maybe a response to what's like a response in your mind to what they're saying. If you had a response in your mind, what is the best way? Let me turn the question again. I'm just trying to get it. What is the best way to listen, or what are the active ways to listen without touching?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much for the question. Very interesting questions. So the first one about communication style. One of the things that I remember hearing many years ago was if you're communicating with someone and they don't understand, they are not the problem. How you are communicating is the problem. And sometimes you see it when someone doesn't understand something, somebody raises their voice as if the volume is going to make it more understandable, instead of actually asking what is not clear. So I come back to what I said about coaching. Ask questions. If you can see your audience is not engaged, stop. Ask them, is this resonating with you? If they say no, say, okay, why not? Let them tell you. Think about who your audience is. Are they going to prefer seeing something visual or just listening to you? Are they going to prefer to act something out or to sit in a circle rather than sit in rows? And this is where I talk about diversity of opinion. So if you're talking to a group of young people, maybe talk to them first. How do you want us to conduct this session? Who would like us to sit this way or that way? As you go through and you feel they're not getting what you're saying, ask them, what's not landing? Did anyone understand the use of the word that I just used? No? Okay, let me use another word. So if you make communication interactive, you will be able to understand where it's not working and how to switch the style to make it work. So I hope that gives some guidance around your question. Your second question, just to be clear, I talked about active listening. Now, that doesn't mean you're not going to have ideas popping into your head as you're listening to someone speak. What it means is that curb those ideas, because when you start to have an idea to respond, the person is still speaking. You have not heard everything they have to say. So you are coming up with a response to something they have not finished saying. So how can your response be what they need as a response when they haven't finished? So you have to train your mind to say, let me create a space to hear what is being said to the end. Then I know what has been said. Then I can reflect on that and give an answer. Because there is no way my response to your half question or your half statement is going to be anything as useful to you as my response to your full statement. So hence why I say, even though you may have things popping in your head, train yourself to stop, to listen till they finished. There's a very interesting book called I Promise I Will Not Interrupt You. And it's something interrupting something we all do as human beings, but we can try to minimize, because when you interrupt, you stop someone communicating fully. And that means your response to them cannot be full. So I hope that helps to address the questions that you asked me. And thank you again.
Hi.
Hi.
Thank you. First of all, I just want to say thank you. Your presentation was immaculate. I learned a lot from it personally. And my question has to do with in regards to coaching. This is sort of basic one. It has to do with coaching. You talked about asking open-ended questions and kind of guiding the youth that you're mentoring into kind of coming up with their own solution. I guess my question is just on more on if you can elaborate more on that, on how to do that. For me specifically, I work with kids from, I would say, ages 13 to 18. And in that age bracket, they're quite young. And sometimes when you're trying to guide them, what the solutions or the things that they kind of tell you are all around, wanting to be accepted by those around them, which may not necessarily be the path. So kind of bite your tongue in order to like, well, do that. And kind of like what you were saying, guiding them to come to that solution. Because I do truly believe that when you come to a solution by yourself, it is definitely easier to kind of implement than having been told. So I guess just more clarity on how to be that support system and how to be that guidance for them.
Okay, thank you. Thanks. Great question. And believe me, coaching is not easy. It's a continuous learning exercise. And, even the best coaches have coaches of their own and continue to enhance and build their skills in their capability. I think the key, though, and you touched on it already, is when you are able to get someone to articulate a solution, they will be quicker to own that solution because they came to it themselves. And I guess really what you're doing with coaching is you're asking questions that will lead them to understand something. So instead of telling someone, for example, you really should not hang around with that group of people. They are not going to help you with your career. They're not going to help you do well in school. They're going to get you in trouble in school. So I can tell you that and say, this is my advice. Do not hang out with those people. They will get you in trouble. I can assure you, most people of that age group listening to me will just hear noise and they will not take anything on that I've said. If I was to ask the question instead that says, tell me about this person that you started to hang around with. What's their reputation in school like? They may say, oh, well, they get into trouble a lot. And then you say, okay, and how do you feel about that? Well, I don't want to get into that kind of trouble myself, but they've been very nice to me. So then you say, okay, so when they're nice to you, what does that mean? And then they'll tell you what that means. And then you'll say, so if you behave like they behave in school, what do you think your teachers might think about you? Then they'll say, well, the teachers will think I'm also not a very good influence and I'm disruptive and they'll report me. And how would that make you feel? It would make me feel really bad. So is this something that you think you want to continue? No, I don't want to feel like that. So what's the best way perhaps for you not to feel like that? Well, maybe I should not spend as much time with that person. So it's taken longer, but that person has been able to think through the process of why they should not hang out with this person that is wrong for them. Instead of just getting someone telling them, don't hang out with that person, they've been able to go through the process of what it means to hang out with that person, what it will mean to them, how they will feel about it, and what impact it's going to have on them. And that way, they've made a decision that they are ready to live with. I hope that answers the question.
Thank you so much. Hello, everyone.
Hello.
I Francis. God bless you. Thank you. Okay. During your introductory, when you were giving the introduction, you made some things like coming to the level of the youth, which I agree with. I think it's a healthy compromise. And as a youth pastor, I've been having this issue, many a times I've engaged between the parents and the youth. And I just want to know to what extent can we go on with this compromise? Because I believe there is need for a balance. We want the parents to come to the level of the youth, understanding the culture and the environment we all live in. All the same, parents don't want to instill discipline and make the youth, the children understand their heritage. So at what level can we balance this and make things work out? So that we'll have progress between the youth and their parents. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Pastor. That is a very powerful question. And I think, you're very correct. There is a balance to be had. But I think we should come back to the goal and the objective that we all have in mind, and that is to make and empower our young people to be the best they can be and to succeed. And so the people we have to influence then are the young people. And I think our role then is to really explain to the parents that their heritage, their values are very important. They're very valid. But just as I was describing a moment ago with the example I gave about coaching, you are not going to get those values absorbed by a young person simply by telling this is what you do, this is how we behave. In our culture, this is what we do. That is not going to be the way that persuades and influences them. So when I say you have to come to where they are, we then have to work with the parents to do what we do and bring them to where their children are. Because, look, I'm a parent. I know many parents, and we think we know our children. We only know the element of our children they choose to share with us. Other people see other sides to our children. How many times has a teacher said to you, oh, your child is so quiet in school, and your child will not stop talking at home? And you think, are we talking about the same child? So we also have to understand that we don't know everything about our children. And we have to learn the context they have to succeed in. So I think we have to influence the parents to understand the importance of coming to where their children are, and then using stories, positive stories about our culture, positive stories about our heritage, positive examples about our role models from our own background to get them to appreciate it rather than just assuming that they should appreciate it. But I appreciate it's a difficult task, and I hope that helps you perhaps bring a new way of looking at it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ma'am Francis. And what he's trying to say is that instead of us saying this is how they create in our culture, we can stylishly bring them to that point where we're just like them, using positive stories. I hope that helps, ma'am. Yeah. Thank you so much. We still have two more.
Okay.
Hi, thank you for the words you spoke here. One thing I noted was you said to influence ourselves before we influence others. And one thing I struggle with is, I work with children and youth. That's why I'm a youth myself, but I work with children and youth. And one thing I've noticed is, people tell me, oh, they're looking after you, they're looking at what you do, to be able to, for the children to do stuff. But one thing that I'm thinking of is how do I influence myself in the way where it's like, things like, for example, the things that I think are okay. A parent might think, oh, my child can't do this, but like, let's say I'm their leader, right? And they're trying to do what I do. So it's like, let's say, for example, I'm like, oh, I can fix my nails, I can make my hair some type of way, and the child is like, oh, mom, look, my leader's doing this. I want to do this as well because I'm the leader, I'm influencing them. So, like, how do I don't get it? Like, they also comes to this point of compromise. And it's like, do I really have to, like, change myself in a way to suit, to be able to influence a child's, things and doing things like that is how do I do that right? And how do I do that in the purpose of not losing myself by doing it?
Okay, now that's a really interesting one. How do I keep my own identity while still being a positive influence for other people? I think one of the things we want to teach people is diversity. We are all different. We are all different. We dress differently. We like different food. We speak in a different way to each other. Those are not the things that define who we are. How we behave towards other people, how other people receive us, and how other people feel as a result of having interacted with us. Those are the things people will remember about you. They might remember you wore a bright red shirt, or you had beads in your braids, or your nails were really funky, but that's not the lasting memory. The lasting memory is, how did I feel when I finished my interaction with this person? And as you're working with young people, helping them to discover the right and the best path for themselves, as you're listening to them as they tell you things that perhaps they can't even tell their closest relatives, as you're taking time to let them feel important, those are the things that are going to matter. So, dress the way you want to dress that makes you feel yourself. And that's not the problem. Be the person that you want them to be like. Be the qualities you want them to emulate, because that's what's important. Thank you.
Good day, ma'am. Thank you for your wonderful tips you gave us for leadership. One of the tips you gave was that we should promise and deliver, because if we don't, it affects the perception that, those you lead have of your leadership. I'm entering into a new leadership position, and I'm a bit anxious that I may not be able to deliver some of the things I would promise as a leader. So I'm wondering what I can do to recover from that if it ends up happening.
Okay. Well, when we're starting in something new, we want to impress, right? And we want to let everyone think that, we're fantastic, we don't make mistakes, and we're perfect in what we're doing. But that's not realistic. And you need to think of your career and your job as a marathon, not a sprint. So when you start, give yourself time. It's better to take the time and get it right. It's better to ask for help, because when you're asking, you're also introducing yourself to someone. I'm a new leader. I've just taken on this role. I'd love to get your opinion on this situation. And when people are engaging with you that way, they see you are being very authentic. You're asking for advice. You're open to being advised, and it helps to grow your network. So give yourself time. Give yourself permission. Because the reason we rush and try and over promise is because we think we're not good enough. If I'm going to be very blunt, we think we're not good enough. So let me promise the earth, and I'll do everything I can if I don't sleep for 1 week to make sure I get that project done. That's not sustainable. That is not a long-term path to success. So you need to think, it's going to take me a week to do this project. I'm going to say I need 10 days, and then I'm going to deliver this project in 6 days, because I took my time, but I actually focused on it. And then when I bring it 6 days instead of 10, people are, wow, fantastic. But I gave myself the time. I didn't put some false deadline because I'm trying to impress someone, because I'm afraid they're not going to think I'm good enough. So we have to recognize what is driving us when we do these things, so that we can tell ourselves it's not true. You are good enough. You can do it. Tell the time that you need to get it done and done properly. Take the time and then deliver knowing that you've given the best you can do. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. I have a question. I'm just right. Okay, so the question is, so and it's kind of related to our female speaker to some extent. Um, so yeah, we live in a world where the youth is exposed to more things than probably parents did when they were growing up. And that thing affects dressing, lifestyle, looks, and all of them. And I think it's not only us, even the parents. I mean, where many of us are wearing English outfits, but back home in Nigeria, like without the influence of the West, we wouldn't be wearing this normally. So now we're in a world now where the youth want to, like this hairstyle, want to keep their beard and all of that. So I think there's something that is missing. I think maybe when we try to, because maybe people that we such lives, some of them, like the Middle Eastern with their beard and all thing, when you see that you see suicide bombers, so don't do your hair like that. When they are like that, actually live like that, and they are very good people that work in some class something. It's a cultural thing. So you can't just say because your beard is like this, then you are. So I feel like maybe this program should only be for youth. Like parents too should be allowed to come in. They can unlearn some things, like keep the values of excellence, exercise, like being going for what you believe is right and all, but then things that are not too major, like your hair, like this. Like, how do we find the balance? Because it's not only for the youth, now it's for the parents. We want to do more, but then the parents are like, you're busy, at least you're going to answer me now. Let me do that part. That's my feeling.
Yeah, some good points were made there. And I think it is a balance, and it is about, I think, parents being honest. When you bring your family to a different country, they are going to be exposed to different cultures and to different values. And it doesn't mean you throw yours away, but it does mean you recognize that it's a more complex environment for your child to grow up in. And that recognition means you have to be ready to compromise. And this is when I talk about working with parents. And I take your point, maybe parents should also be part of this. But it's working with parents to really give them the tools to reach their young people in the most effective way. Because if they don't, it doesn't matter how great our culture is, we're not going to be able to pass it on. Thank you.